Good evening. It's 9 minutes past 6 p.m. in East Africa, where we're doing this Zoom from. Welcome. Today is Monday, the 27th of January. Monday means we do Q&A, but not just any Q&A, but Q&A about a topical subject. Basically, we are not limited to any subject. We tackle subjects about God, about religion, about faith, or Trinity, like we did in the last 2 weeks. You name it, about life generally. Not because we know everything, but because we believe that iron sharpens iron. If we come here and talk about these things, we become better, not just in our beliefs, but also in our convictions and in our arguments. So this is the place for you if you like a good argument. And like I said, we do this between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. East African time every Monday. If you're listening to this on YouTube, the Zoom link should be somewhere in the description. If the audio has been forwarded to you, again, the Zoom link doesn't change. It's always the same every Monday, as well as the passcode. So feel free to join in any given Monday, and we'll be happy to have a conversation. I don't want to call it a debate, it's just a conversation about a different subject. So today we're going to discuss afterlife, not just afterlife, but the whole idea of God and religion. It was instigated by one of our own, Emma, who's not yet online, but I know he's going to join in. In his opinion, the idea of God and religion was invented by man just to comfort them. You know, humans have a lot of suffering on this earth here. So they need feel-good stories, they need therapy, they need all sorts of nice ways to navigate this broken existence. So in his opinion, he feels the whole idea of God and the afterlife was invented by man to just make him feel good about himself. So unfortunately, he's not here to give, because I wanted to give him the floor first to defend that position, and then the people on the other side would respond. But since he's not here, that's all right. We'll still, have a conversation while he's away, and then when he comes in, he'll be able to jump in. Yeah. So the whole concept of afterlife is not strange in many religions. In Christendom, in Buddhism, Hinduism, and all these other religions, if you like. For example, in Christianity, it's called heaven. Some other religions or worldviews, at least, call it reincarnation, and then others call it nirvana. I think that's the Buddhism worldview. So basically, some from the Christian point of view, when this life is done, there'll be an end to everything. In fact, there's promise of a new earth and a new heaven, where we shall be given glorified bodies to live forever and ever with God. In some verses, it says, in the land of milk and honey, streets of gold, and so on and so forth. So that's how heaven is described in some places. From the Hindu point of view, reincarnation, basically, if you die, you return as something else. If you're well behaved, you come back, maybe as a prince or as a president or something. And then if you're poorly behaved, you probably come back as a rat, a cockroach, and things like that. And then nirvana in the Buddhism sense speaks about the end again of all suffering. I think in the three views as they have them. So those are some of the issues we want to talk about. Basically, this whole God idea, where did it come from? How did the early humans grapple with the concept of mortality? All of us, or should I say, most of us fear death. And because we fear death, we tend to do so many things. And like I said, storytelling and myths provide comfort to get a source of control over the unknown. So, Benempulu, since your microphone is on, let me start with you. Like I said, it's a pity Emma should have gone first to present his position about why he thinks this whole thing is a myth. But from your point of view, Benempulu, why do you think religion in general was invented by man just to control, the morality and social order and the whole afterlife belief? Benempulu? also known as Gospel
Thank you,
Ninja.
thank you, thank you. Thank you, sir. Yes, also known as the Gospel Ninja. Good evening and welcome, everybody. As people would say, it has been alleged so, but it has not yet been proved scientifically. I'm saying that allegation, the assertion that, religion or God is an invention by humanity to, sedate us or opiate us, console us, numb us, whatever you call it, towards the challenges, not only death, but it's death is the extreme, it's the final, but there's lots of things that have been accused to Christians by different people, not Christians, by religious people, especially from the other side, that, this is just a psychological crutch that has been created and invented to hang on to in times of trouble, to console yourself. And it can actually be true. So the response would be yes and no towards the question of utilitarian view of what people would call religion or faith in God. But the idea that it is an invention is still debatable, I would say, because, for example, to invent it means that you're the origin of it. You've thought about it and come up with it. And hence it does not exist unless you who has come up with it creates it. Hence God himself and the afterlife itself would be a creation. And in this case, would only remain as an idea, because then we who exist on this side do not know what is on the other side. It only can remain an idea if we are the creators, if we are the inventors, if we are the ones who came up with it. And in fact, that would be the bigger discussion as to whether it is useful to those who believe it or not. I would say, of course, it is useful. I remember a couple of years ago, almost 6 years ago, tragically lost my wife, my first wife. And when one of the atheist friends came to the funeral, one of the vigils, he said, one of the things you Christians have that we don't have is this thing called hope for eternal life, like life beyond this. It comforts you, it strengthens you. There is a sense of, hope that you have that we don't have. And it's a good way to see it. And if an atheist can actually see it. But that is not the best thing, because the truth is there are many people who come to faith out of crisis, out of despair, and faith becomes that anchor onto all that holds them. And so some people would look at it as a psychological crutch. You hold on to it because you have nothing else to hold on to. Hence, if science answers the question, if you find any solace in science or anything else other than the idea of God or belief in the supernatural, then you don't need that anymore. And obviously, the people who would come with that reservation and objection towards God and the afterlife would be alluding to something similar. So anyway, if I were to have this conversation to its fullness, I would want to know whether the person asking has put into consideration that this is not an isolated reality or idea that the people who believe in God put across. So the afterlife is not detached from the other questions of where do we come from, our origin, our existence, our real existence here, the meaning and purpose of life, the challenges, suffering, whatever we go through, are these connected and so inseparable? And is there anything bad or good? And the afterlife is not just existence. Christians or believers believe, other believers in other religions will believe, like for me, a Christian will believe that the afterlife is connected to ultimate justice, that this thing, this justice that keeps evading and evading us on this side of eternity or this side of life, You cannot evade it at the gates, of judgment. You have to face judgment. So there are many things involved. And at the end of the day, the one in the dock is not afterlife, but God. What you believe about God matters in the end, whether there is an afterlife or not. So, can humans create God? Have humans created God? The idea of afterlife is not a human invention, I would argue. I would insist that it is an idea that an interpretation that humans get after they are wrestling with this thing called God, our existence. How do we come here? So this question, I wish I'd heard what Emma said, but let me share some thoughts beyond what I've said at the beginning, and then I'll wait if Emma comes and he's free to rebut in any way what I've said. So first of all, it's an allegation. It can be an accusation that is very filled with assumptions, as all would be. There's so many assumptions. What does this person know about God, believe about God, say about God? I would want to hear things of that nature. Because if God to you is an idea, God to you is an invention of humans, then that statement can only be true. So some of you will know that there is a famous German philosopher and economist called Karl Marx. And of course, he was a Marxist, as you all know, Marxism. But he was believed, he said that religion is the opium of the people, of the masses, and
The
alleged that
masses.
yes, and the masses. And he alleged, what the question you asked, his allegation was it was created by the powerful in order to wield control over the masses. He dreamt that one day there would be a communist revolution that would replace religion with communism, Marxism. Unfortunately for him, he passed before seeing his dream come to pass. And just like many people that have had their own objections towards God and unfounded accusations, not him, also Voltaire thought things about the Bible. But in this case, he, like in this particular question and context, opium sedates people about reality. You take it, you can even walk into a fire. You can even do anything crazy, and it happens. And so there's religion, and it's true, that accusation is true to some extent, that there are people who, by virtue of their religious beliefs, they will be as though they're under a spell, they're opiated, they're sedated, they're under something. And that's what we need to ask. What is it that they're under? Some of them, they might be irrational about their religion or their religious beliefs, but that does not logically follow that anything that people are irrational about isn't true or isn't real. In fact, I would use an example. If ask yourself, think about it. If you let me use pork. You don't like pork. I like it. I will say it is delicious. I will make many claims. You will make your own claims about it because you don't like it. I will make my own claims about it because I like it. I like it. I'll tell you how delicious ribs are. I'll tell you how delicious the hooves and the ears can be. I'll go as far as telling you that the snot is, but then you'll be like, that is not sufficient to convince me about one, the existence of pork or pigs. We could go on and on, but we have to go on and investigate whether it's chocolate, whatever you talk about that you like and others don't like, because you will hear, if you pay attention, this accusation towards religion has been raised by people who particularly are opposed to religion. They don't like it. They have not appreciated it. They have struggled with it. They have struggled to appreciate it. But also they have their own worldviews. They have their own ideas that they would love to stand. In fact, Karl Marx had his own dreams. From a scientific point of view, which today the question stands highly from a materialistic and naturalistic point of view, many atheists, and I'll quote a few if I'm allowed to, they have come very militantly and strongly to argue that, religion is simply a delusion. It is irrational. It is imaginary. It is a belief. And some of you have heard of atheists like Thomas Nagel, a leading American atheist or philosopher. Maybe you've heard of him, maybe not. But he wrote in one of his books and said, it's not that I don't want to believe in a God. I don't want there to be a God. I don't want our universe to be like that. Think about it. He doesn't want his feelings, his wish, what would you call it? Wish fulfillment is that God shouldn't exist. But he's not the only one. But you see, this is a professor of law, in New York, now retired. But that's how he thinks. And I don't want to think that takes away his intellect. No, at all, he doesn't. But I would still insist that his feelings shouldn't be overriding his intellect on a matter of this nature. If he doesn't like the existence of God, he should allow those who believe in the existence of God to make their case, but also he can make his own case. You may also have had guys like Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris who strongly insist that no, this is irrational. We have rational, justifiable, evidence-based, scientifically proven ways to explain that which the religious point towards the supernatural. Hence, this is delusion. After all that exists is our natural world, what we see, what we can taste, what we can touch. But the most strong one that I would want to put before you and think seriously, because I want to imagine that more than the communism and the Marxism of Karl Marx, the scientism and the naturalistic inclinations are the ones that are pushing such allegations. An evolution biologist.
Name, please.
I'm concluding.
Just conclude your submission.
I'm concluding, sir. Yes, that's what I'm doing. An evolution biologist and geneticist, an American as well, Richard Lewontin, once writing, if you check it out, it's a nice one to read, Billions and Billions of Demons, published in about 1997. He's responding to Carl Sagan's Our Demon-Haunted World. He talks about, he says, our willingness to accept scientific claims that are against common sense is the key to an understanding of the real struggle between science and the supernatural. We take the side of science in spite of the patent absurdity of some of its constructs, in spite of its failure to fulfill many of its extravagant promises of health and life, in spite of the tolerance of the scientific community for unsubstantiated just so stories, because we have a prior and a priori commitment, a commitment to materialism. It is not that methods and institutions of science somehow compel us to accept a material explanation of the phenomenal world, but on the contrary, that we are forced by our a priori adherence to material causes to create an apparatus of investigation and a set of concepts that produce material explanations, no matter how counterintuitive, no matter how mystifying to the uninitiated. Moreover, that materialism is absolute, for we cannot allow a divine foot in the door. So the question is not necessarily about the afterlife, but the moment you allow a divine foot in the door, you've given up, you've given in too much, meaning that your explanation of origin, meaning, purpose, morality, destiny is not nothingness, that we are a product of nothingness, we are a product of mindless, irrational, purposeless, irregular forces and laws of nature, but rather since we are rational beings, moral beings, conscious beings, we are probably a product of a being that has qualities that transcend our own. And we can refer everything, all our questions and all our struggles and that which we do not know, to that being as an alternative explanation, if not as the only ultimate explanation. So the person who thinks that religion, God, the afterlife is a creation, an invention of humans as a psychological crutch, would have to offer a parallel alternative, if not a transcending explanation for origin of life, Meaning and purpose of life. Where do we come from? Why are we here? Morality. Is there such a thing as good or bad in this life? Is there justice? Can we expect justice beyond this oppression that we see in systems? And where does this all end? Into nothingness? Really? Okay. Anyway, I would
Thank
have more
you. Thank you
questions,
very much.
and I would leave it there. Perhaps I'll follow up later.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah, you've set the stage. Thank you very much. Emma is online now. Emma, you need to apologize to the esteemed panel here for being late. We communicated 6 p.m. We expected you here. And that is because this whole subject was because of what you initially claimed. So I wanted to give you the first opportunity to defend your claim. And the claim was humanity is all about survival. We want to continue living forever. The idea of God slash religion was crafted to convince people that they'll continue to live after death. All right. So in your absence, we went ahead. Of course, the gospel ninja, aka Bainempunu, went ahead to give his side of this question, and he laid a very good ground. That today we are not just discussing the afterlife as just a small subsection, but we're discussing the whole idea of God. But even then, the whole idea of meaning, why are we here, where are we going, what's the purpose of being here, and so on and so forth. So, Emma, let me give you a chance. You made a claim, so please back up your claim, and then the esteemed people here will respond to you. Emma, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. Yes, loud and clear. Please go right ahead. Tell us why
Yeah.
you believe
How many
the
minutes do
whole
I have?
idea.
How many minutes do I have?
Initially, I'll give you 10 minutes.
All right.
And
Okay.
then, of course, I'll
I
give
may
you
not need
another
much
chance to speak.
time. I don't know. Okay, now listen. Sorry, I apologize for being late because I had some other stuff I had to finish. I was surviving. Let me just use that phrase. Now, you see, to me, this is not even a topic of discussion from my point of view. If you observe the natural universe as it is right now, you realize that one form of life depends on another form of life, okay? We human beings, we eat goats, pigs, fish. These are different forms of life that we depend on as our source of food. And when you look at the order of nature, it is arranged in such a way that there is continuous mutual exploitation within nature. So our life is just like the life of other organisms in nature. Self-preservation, survival, and that's it. Our only reality is biological, from my point of view. Is that you eat your food and we reproduce. That's what you're doing exactly. Nature is interested in two things and two things only. The first one is to continue itself. The second one is to survive. Both are interrelated. You will, if you observe life around you or around the entire universe, you realize that every organism reproduces. There is that, I don't know, there is that urge to reproduce. That's why our most urgent urge has always been sex and food, those two. Our bodies have been designed in such a way that we seek out food and sex to reproduce one like yourself, to continue life basically. Food to sustain yourself, because without food you can't sustain yourself. This applies to all organisms in nature. When you look at even trees are out there looking for sunlight. They're struggling. You know, if you go to a forest, you find some trees are short, others are tall, they're struggling for sunlight. When you look at our daily lives, we wake up every morning, we try to look for resources, basically, so that we can sustain our families and continue life. Basically, that is it. Everything else that we do is centered around that basic fact. Human beings pursue two things in life, two things and two things only. The first one is material welfare. Everyone wants to live in a decent house. Everyone wants to drive a decent car. Everyone wants to have something that they can leave maybe and pass on to their children, if you have kids, okay? Then, after getting enough material satisfaction, which is a very complicated thing because we always want more and more and more and more, we move on to the psychological, which is spiritual welfare. So we seek two things. We seek material welfare and spiritual welfare. The spiritual welfare is now where we invoke religion and all these other belief systems. You know, after when you have built your house, educated all your children, occasionally the question arises, is this all to life? You know, when that question arises, the people start seeking spiritual welfare, something that can continue beyond the material life. Now, all these things, spiritual, religion, all these things are purely psychological processes of man. Because the Holy Spirit has no physical reality. The Holy Spirit doesn't have any physical reality. God has no physical reality. Wherever you think God is, you know, whatever you worship, these entities have no physical reality, but they give us what they call psychological comfort. They make us feel good about ourselves. They give us that kind of psychological security, because that is what we're looking for. We want to be secure, both materially and spiritually. And this is what we all seek. This is what all human beings seek in life. Survival is what drives all of us. It is not something which is designed by us. It has been put in us by nature. Every organism, observe in your environment, they want to multiply. Whether they are worms, whether they are trees, even trees. When wind blows trees, for example, seeds enter the ground, other trees come up. Nature wants to continue at all cost. And this, to me, is not something which is even debatable. We are here today because our ancestors had sex. It's just as simple as that. Why we are here, nobody knows. Where we are going, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Whatever you know is merely a psychological projection that you have accepted as a position that you hold as the truth. You see, all these things basically comes down to you. If you believe there is God, it's fine. Me, I can't take that away from anyone. Within my own family, I have those who believe, and I have no problems with that. If it gives you some form of psychological comfort, live your life. I have no problems with that entirely. But the fact of the matter is, nobody wants to go to bed hungry, because you see, hunger isn't something which is psychological. It is a physical reality. That's why the cure for hunger isn't prayer. The cure for hunger is you have to find food. Nobody cures hunger with prayer. So our lives is centered around material welfare first. Your pastors, all these spiritual gurus, watch how they live. They live in decent neighborhoods, okay? So long as they can afford it, so long as the church can supply it. There's no pastor who lives in a ghetto when the church is generating a lot of money. No one does that. These are just my own observation of the world. Nobody wakes up in the morning to seek another human being's advantage in life. We all wake up in the morning to go about our business so that we can seek our own advantage in life. It is just as a basic fact to me. I've observed life over time from a philosophical standpoint and from a material standpoint. And the fact of the matter is, we are basically here to survive and to continue life. Why? What purpose it serves? No one knows. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. Whatever we claim to know is merely a projection of knowledge. We're just projecting knowledge. You acquire some knowledge here, whether it's Christian knowledge, then you manipulate it so that it can work towards for your own advantage, and then you accept it as your truth, which is okay with me. But the fact of the matter is, what certain things apply to all of us. We all sleep. We all have female or male genitalia, basically for reproduction, and we all eat. These are just things which cuts across all human beings, whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're a Christian, whether you believe in whatever your beliefs are, you need food, you need where to sleep, you need these things to survive. These are just basic facts to me. And I think, let me just stop now and hear what you have to say.
There's a question from Jackie before you go. What is the source of nature? That's what she's asking.
What is the what?
So what is the source of this nature that gives rise to all these things you've said?
The source of nature?
That's what she's asking.
I don't know. You see, for me, I accept my ignorance. I don't know. I can't say the source of nature is this. But when you look at nature for yourself, nature is a single unit. There are no separate things in nature. When you look at it for yourself, the trees are there to serve a particular purpose. Birds depend on the trees. These same birds reproduce more trees because they carry these seeds around. We human beings eat fish. And if you die in a lake, the fish is going to eat you. It's just the order of things. When you are dead, maggots come out of you and they have a feast. It is just how things are. Okay? It's just the order of
Emma, thank you.
nature. So for me, I can't claim that I know the answer to this. Any answer which I claim to know is to me merely a projection of knowledge. That is it.
Okay, thank you, Emma. I think you've made your case. I didn't want to interrupt you because I know there would be so many questions coming up. If you'd like to say something, there are two ways. First of all, you can raise your hand, your e-hand. Yeah, use that function if you want to say something, and then I'll give you a chance. If you cannot speak, then you can type in the chat room, in the chat rather. I'll also read out your question. Before Emma, there's a question for you from by name Punu. How long have you been in that I don't know state on such an important question? How long have you been in that I don't know state?
No, at first I thought I knew. Okay. I came from, first of all, we need to understand one thing. What is the source of our knowledge? Okay, because if you claim you know something, how do you come to know something? You are taught these things, whether it's the knowledge is about God, whether it's about economics, whether it's about anything. There is no child who comes into this world with all this knowledge. This knowledge is basically percolating in society, is in books, which has been passed on from generation to generation. There is no knowledge which is personal. All knowledge is acquired. So I looked at all these knowledge concepts, whether it's religious knowledge concept, whether it's political knowledge concept, whether all these things, and I just look at them as human beings trying to find meaning. We're looking for answers, but we have failed to find that particular answer that we want, so we keep going back and forth.
Thank you, Emma.
The state of I don't know is the fact is that nature is too complicated for me to know for myself, by myself, and I cannot claim any special knowledge about it.
So you also don't know when you got into the I don't know state. That's what you're saying.
Basically, that is it.
Because that was the question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, thanks, Emma. Musazi, I see your hand up. Please say something. If you want to say something, please raise your hand.
Emma, today you're going to run.
Is saying thank you. Benson, please behave. Raise your hand if you have something to say. Emma Kato is saying thank you very much for your submission. Musazi, please go ahead. Musazi.
Well,
your network is a bit funny.
I don't have a question.
Can you guys hear
I just
him?
want to express my.
Keep talking, Musazi.
If now,
so we see if we can follow you.
Can you hear me?
Okay, I think I can hear you now.
I was saying that I just want to express my views on this topic that is being discussed. But if now is not the time for that, I can wait. If it's okay, I can go ahead and express my views.
Go on. You have 2 minutes to do that. It's okay.
Okay.
Just summarize whatever you want to say.
I do not have any disagreement with what the previous speaker has said. I agree with what he has said. And although I do not know many things about nature, about the world we live in, I strongly doubt that what religion tells us about the afterlife is true. Because we have to start from the simple premise that there is nobody really who is alive. Nobody who died maybe 200 years ago knows that when we die, we get another life. All the evidence we have, at least going by what people who died many years before us, is that once you choose your life, that's the end. You are not going to be here again. You are going to be dead. To be dead. So I look at religion as something that tries to provide answers to some of the difficult questions we have, and it actually does a very bad job. If there is anything that tries, it does not answer all questions, and that's actually its strength, because if it knew everything, why would it bother? If there is anything that tries, it is science. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Musazi. Musazi, in other agrees with Emma, at least in principle, that we are an accident of nature. And here we are, we don't know why we're here. We are like fish, we die, we eat, we reproduce, and so on and so forth. If you want to say something, please raise your hand. But let me invite Isaiah. In 1 minute, Emma, in 1 minute.
Yeah, for me, the whole question of purpose and meaning and all these things, trying to find the correct answers. May I always ask people, why does life have to have a purpose? It doesn't have to. You see, we're beginning from the supposition that it must mean something. And that's where the challenge now comes in. We keep going in circles.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Kato, your hand was up. Please submit. Before I come to you, Isaiah.
Thank you, Jethro. Good evening, everyone. On this call, I have some few things I would wish to also add on what we are talking about today.
Please use
which is
2 minutes. Summarize within
okay.
2 minutes. Yeah.
All right. I have 4 points. One, religion helps people to cope with death. And this can be seen through religious leaders when religious denominations gather, they comfort themselves. The pastors tell their followers what happens after death, explaining that entire utopia to people, and we can say that this reduces sadness and fear in the believers. Then, second, religion may have evolved to help the society. For instance, there is this brief that says, okay, I can say many scientists think that religion developed to help societies stay calm and work together. For instance, now pastors supplying hope on demand, it could act as a strong unifying factor for people. Then three, fear of death can as well be used as a tool of control. In history, we've seen religious leaders use fear of death and punishment after death to control people. For instance, like Christians telling non-believers that they will die in hell when they don't become Christians, or whatever you can add. Sorry about someone
Sorry, you're
was called.
breaking.
So now this makes one wonder whether the idea of afterlife was created to comfort us or to actually control us.
That is what we are discussing here, Kato, today. But I think that was your fourth point. Thank you very much. Jackie, your hand is up.
Sorry, can I finish?
Can you hear me?
Come closer to your microphone, Jackie. Kato, I'll give you another chance.
Everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah, fairly, faintly, but go on.
Okay. Well, I had a few maybe comments to the previous speaker. That was Emma, I believe. Well, the first
2 minutes,
question
please.
I did ask, the first question I did ask in the chat. So you can't say, when even you as a human, when you make something, yes, you make it for a particular purpose, right or wrong? So
right, I would say.
yes. So you can't say that we are here aimlessly, living life to eat, shit, and die, you know? So there must be something greater when you think about your life. And you did mention that even those who we are materialistic, but even when we attain what maybe you think is a greater standard of living, you still want more. It's like there is that void, there is something more. I'm missing, there is something missing. So what do you think is the urge behind that? Because ideally, I would imagine trillionaires would be satisfied. They can access anything that they want in life. So where does that urge for wanting something more? Well, you did explain that that is where the spiritual comes in, and that itself should tell you there is something more to life. Otherwise, we would be content, yeah? Like I've achieved the greatest, I can get anything, so I would be content. Why aren't I content? So that is just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I believe those questions
Jackie?
are for Emma. Emma, yes, in 1 minute. Yes.
Okay, now you see, for me, I am not interested in changing anybody's point of view. And I'm also not interested in trying to assert my position here. The thing I'm trying to say is a very, very simple thing. The human mind is a bottomless pit. That is why you always want something else after acquiring something. It is a bottomless pit. Satisfaction doesn't last for long. That's why when you eat food, after a certain moment, you excrete. After excreting, you want more food. This is the design of nature. I don't have any particular reason as to why we always want more. But that seems to be the order of things. And it can't just be reversed. There is no philosophy that can explain that. You can try and use whatever kind of language you want to use, fair enough. Now, the argument that because we cannot get satisfied, therefore there is more to life. I have no problem with that if you think there is more to life. My question is, what is that more to life? Okay? Is it continuity of life that we're talking about? Or is it something supernatural? And if it's supernatural, how can it be perceived? Because we only have we perceive things through our biological organisms. You hear things right now, I am talking using my mouth. I'm listening using my eardrums. There must be a perceiving entity. If there is no perceiving entity, which is the nature of death, there has to be a perceiver. And you see, in this Buddhistic thinking, the perceiver and what is perceived are one and the same thing. So what is this thing that you claim to be there that we can't even grasp? It's just a psychological entity. We don't know what it is. How are we going to perceive it? How do you perceive heaven if the soul is a psychological entity? And by psychological, I mean it's a byproduct of brain activity. Now, when the brain is dead, for example, there is no psychological reality. That's why when your brain dead, they say that you are dead. You're no longer there. So how are you going to
Thank you.
perceive the things that you're talking about? For me, I
Thank
don't
you,
understand.
Emma.
I just want to put this out there to my friend Jackie. If there is more to life beyond the material welfare and reproduction in nature and blah, 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 what is the perceiving entity? Because right now I'm talking using my mouth. I'm listening using my eardrums. These are senses, biological senses, that we are using to communicate right now. What is there when this body is gone?
Thank you, Emma. I think you've asked the question. It's been heard, it's been understood. Isaiah, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Isaiah,
Praise,
you're different from a fish.
praise God for those who believe that there is God. And hello, Emma.
Amen.
Long time, my friend Emma. It's good to
Yeah,
hear.
it's been long.
Good to hear from you again. Yes, moderator. Where do you want me to start
No, I
from?
wanted you to start from the idea that you're not different from a fish because you're here by nature, by an accident of nature. The rest is just psychological safety, as he calls it. Start from that point.
Oh, I am not sure I am not different from a fish because even biology itself or science itself confirms that human beings are different from fish. Basic primary science, fish is what? Is it amphibian or what? I have forgotten my primary science. And then human beings are not that. So, I mean, to start from the literal point of view, that is a basic understanding that I am different from a fish. But whoever fronts an argument that human beings are not different from a fish, then that person must be a Bible reader, because the Jews in the Bible almost believed the same in the book of Ecclesiastes when they said that there is no difference between human beings and dogs. And their foundational argument was surrounding the idea of death. And they were not actually discussing the ideology of death, but they were discussing the practicality of death. And these things are very important for us to understand, because in Ecclesiastes, they said that as a man dies, so does a dog. So the argument of human beings are not different from fish is equivalent to the argument in the Bible by the Jews in the book of Ecclesiastes that there is no difference between a dog and a human being. And the rationale for that argument was that as a dog dies, so does a human being. So you see where that argument comes from. Then furthermore on that very point, we also need to ask ourselves whether we look at life the same way fish look at life. Because the fish wakes up every morning to survive in the lake. It just wakes up every morning to do that. And as far as my brother Emma is concerned, human beings do the same. We also wake up every morning to survive, and that is it. But you see, like I've always emphasized together with my young brother Peter here, language is key in these discussions and conversations. We are talking about surviving. Surviving from what? now that Emma has actually even established that there is providence in nature, and all that human beings need to do is to take advantage of that providence and make sure they utilize it to their goal of survival. So we have two things here, moderator, and those listening to me. One is the idea of survival. Surviving from what? From death. Why is it important to survive from what is absolute? Because this is where we need to think. Now that we have established that life is meaningless, purposeless, it all ends in death. Aren't we idiotic enough then to try solving the definite? Because what I'm listening at here is fatalism. Our fate is death. But we wake up every morning to survive death. Throughout all our generations, we've been doing the same thing in the same way, getting the same result. Aren't we lunatics then? So that whole thing of surviving is very important for us to think about. Okay, so why are we so obsessed with fighting the impossible, with surviving the impossible? As beings with a brain that has an extra section known as the mind, which I'm very sure science accommodates, but it hasn't explained, then that means that besides our brain that looks for food, there is a mind behind that brain that looks at life as something that can be better than it is. A. B, as something that has a problem that shouldn't have been part of life. So these are the things that we need to think about in the aspect of survival. One. Two. Then the other thing also which is important is goal. The idea of the goal, because we have turned survival into a goal. Now, now, if I am like a fish, my goal in looking for food and sex, I can assure you, I have never been a fish, but I can assure you as a human being who I am, that my goal goes beyond food. I am not eating to just live. I have other premonitions when I feed myself. This is why I'm even selective in what I eat and what I don't, and choosing to eat and not to eat. These are purposes surrounding the whole idea of goal. So I have a different goal from that. So moderator, I need us to look at that whole idea of survival and then the goal, because later on goal will materialize into what we call purpose. And I know this discussion might get there, but I wanted us to think through those. Then finally, as I leave, I have been looking at the title of our discussion today, and I have had all the presenters here. And I think for me, this discussion falls into two worldviews. The first worldview is that of that says that religion stroke God is just a comforting psychology that is given to people that have a paranoia about faith and the reality of death here. But there is nothing like that There is no God at the end there. So you guys are just going to die, just like a dog dies or like a fish dies. And that worldview actually was, it has been attributed to one of the fathers of psychology, Sigmund Freud. And we understand the history and the context of that statement of the brother Sigmund Freud, if you know his life. Then, because that has been attributed to Sigmund Freud, that is just a comforting core idea. But there's a contending worldview again that I would like to share with you people, and it goes like this: if Sigmund Freud is right and true in what he's saying, that this is just a comforting psychology, that there is no God, actually there is God, that there is God, and you know, so people are holding their hopes in that utopia of the existence of a God who will make things better. When they die, they are going to that. This is just comforting them. Then the contending idea is this is in a very equivocal sense. This is equivalent to the idea that there is no God is also equally a comforting psychology, that you can live as you want, you can survive using all the measures that you want to survive, like survival for the fittest, and be rest assured that at the end of this life, you're not going to be held accountable because there is no supreme authority there. These arguments are equal and one and the same. So you can choose. you can just choose which school of thought are you going to believe to belong to. Is there a God that eventually will make this life meaningful and give a purpose to this hard and absurd life that we have lived, the life of struggle, aka survival? Is there a God that is going to change everything and make things better forever? Or you can live as you want, be comforted that you are not going at the end of the day to be held accountable because there is no God. So these are very important things to think about, and these contending views are equally the same. Thank you, moderator.
Is there a question I should answer there?
Well, you can respond to what Isaiah said. I'm coming to you by name Puno and Musazi. But Emma, do you want to respond to anything Isaiah said before I go to
Yeah,
Bainem?
I want to respond to what he's saying. When I say that we are not different from any other organism in nature, I'm not even just implying fish alone. I'm even implying the garden slug, the insect, the mosquito. The reason I'm saying this, and I stand by this, is that all organisms, why we call ourselves organisms, is because we consume organic matter. Okay? Where does organic matter comes from? It comes from nature. So in that sense, we are no different from fish that stays in the water, because also fish consumes organic matter. We human beings also consume organic matter. Actually, all our health conditions we are facing nowadays is because we are beginning to manufacture food and create problems for ourselves. But if you are stuck with our organic matter, eating organic matter, as it has always been from our ancestors up to now, things will be okay. So in that sense, when I say we are no different from fish and all these other things, because we all depend on nature. Whether you're a fish, whether you're a maggot, you eat organic matter to survive. There is no organic entity that feeds on concrete or any stuff like that. Doesn't exist for me, from my point of view. Now, when you talk of survival, for example, survival is biological from my point of view. Because without the biological, you can't have the psychological. That's why all these arguments that you're having right now is within the framework of time. we have a physical reality right now. We have our bodies that is trying to move into a psychological realm and project things. So survival is biological. That is my point of view. We are different.
Thank you.
Our differences from other organisms in nature comes down to our capacity for memory. Human beings have a long, expanded capacity for memory. A dog also has that capacity for memory. That's how dogs recognize their owners in the first place. Because if a dog didn't remember its owner, it wouldn't live with the owner. Okay? So this long capacity for memory, which begins to build from childhood. Because what you call yourself, what you call you, what you call Jethro, what you call Emma, from my point of view, is purely memory. You know who you are so long as you can remember who you are. And when death comes, that memory is wiped clean. We sleep every night. Sleep for me is like the cousin of death. When you're in deep sleep, do you exist? Are you there?
By the way, do you exist, Emma? When you're sleeping, are you existing? Let me
You
ask you
don't.
that.
There is not, because our existence, what you call Emma, Jethro, what you call Emma is purely a psychological entity. I know who I am because I can remember who I am. Society, my
So
parents
our
gave me a
existence is
name.
based on our consciousness. That's what you're saying.
Basically that. Okay?
Okay, Emma, I'm going to cut you short. I think you've made your point. Let me proceed to Musazi first, then I'll go to Bainempulo. Musazi, please.
Yes, mine is just a question. If you have looked at life objectively, you know that when a pig dies, it's dead. Nobody's going to think that the pig is going to live again. When you are driving and you hit a dog and you kill it, the dog is gone for good. Why is it that when it comes to human beings, you want to believe that after human beings die, there's going to be life for them? If on evidence to draw such a conclusion, it makes a great deal of
Okay,
sense.
Musazi, your
But if you
network
are
is really
depending
terrible,
on
but I think your
evidence,
question has been got.
oh yeah,
Bainempulo, I want you to start with that question actually. Musazi, but your question has been good. Your network was a bit terrible towards the end. Bainempulo?
I think his question is very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody that has submitted. Thank you, Emma, for pushing us to think about this, because the truth is there are many people who hold religious belief, but they have not thought it through. And when you ask such questions, they may not necessarily have the answers or the responses. And like you said, you once thought you knew. And indeed, there are people who might be in that state, like once you claim you were, where you once knew. And I asked you a question which I think, because you're not the first agnostic I have met, I wouldn't call you atheist, because you keep saying you don't know and you don't mind what others know. In other words, you are happy not to know, and whoever knows, it's their business. And as you've said, you don't mind, you're not interested in being convinced or not convinced. Do you hear me?
I'm
I heard
hearing
someone
you.
speak. Okay,
I'm
thank you
hearing
very
you.
much. But to address Musazi's first question, the question first, how come when it comes to human beings, Emma, hold on, how come when it comes to human beings, their lives matter? We treat their lives to be sacred, and I'm risking to use the language sacred, because then I am almost pointing towards the religious or spiritual. But even then, our constitutions that are secular treat human life as to have dignity and value over any other thing that exists. Now, obviously, it is an insult to self and to other human beings whether you want to accept it or not, to even place our value and worth at the level of a slug, in as much as biologically it makes sense to you. And that's why I did quote Richard Lewontin, because that's exactly what Richard Lewontin is saying. He's saying we are committed to scientific, biological, materialistic explanations because we don't want to let in another view. Because if you allow human life to have meaning, you have to explain that meaning and purpose. If you espouse that. But the truth is that we do see we have meaning and purpose. We will, even when someone has lived 100 years, we will want to take them to hospital to receive treatment. Emma, it is okay to listen a bit.
I'm listening.
Yeah, okay, if you want to say something, say it, fine.
Just something short.
Because you kill a line of thought. You interrupt a line of thought when you do that.
I apologize. Please just
yes.
go on and finish.
Yeah. So why I'm saying that is let's not pretend. In fact, what Isaiah said, it is the other side is opium as well. It is be a high on something, on a particular something that of preference. When I was submitting, you might not have been around, but I did raise a few things in terms of why this line of thinking is becoming so dominant these days. It's a new one. It's not necessarily new, but it's not even 500 years old, and yet we've been here for long. The idea that religion is a creation of humans, or God, the divine, the supernatural, is a creation. It's not even a Christian thing. Think about the African traditional world. If you think about even in animism, there's a belief that there is existence that is beyond us. And why? Because we acknowledge that as human beings, you said it also, that we are physical, but there is something that is not physical about us. The mind, and some people what they call the soul, and what Christians and others would call the spirit, is not physical. And that's the truth. So when we acknowledge that there is existence that is not physical, how do we account for it when the physical dies? Because the physical, that which is not physical does not die like the physical. At least we cannot claim for us because the physical has died, therefore the non-physical has also died. So the pigs, the chickens, we slaughter them and eat them because we think that is the way we survive. And you said it very well. We do it for survival. But how do we even guarantee that when we feed on nature, we survive? How do our bodies, how does our existence, how is it so randomly, accidentally designed that I don't feed on grass? That I don't eat grass? How is it that your existence, your survival does not depend on eating stars, but specifically food and specific food, and if it's to eat meat, specific meat? Why is it that you are not the one that lives on grass? Why is it? Is it accidental? You use language like design, and I'm mixing up things, but I'm trying to say that our value as humans, and I would dare to say in terms of existence in nature, because there's existence outside nature, because if you say that all that exists is nature, you have to explain the existence of nature. How does nature come to exist? And that question, I think you avoided it by saying you don't know. That is an excuse for today. But beyond today, that's why I asked you, how long? How long? Because if you say you don't know today, you can't not know tomorrow. You need to investigate. Else, you are holding on to, okay, Emma, speak.
Because Emma, if you stretch it for too long, I may not be able to respond.
But why? You need to...
Some of the points that you're mentioning.
Holding on to your views or write down and then you share them. Otherwise, there's no... you notice I've been quiet and typing because True. It's okay. It's okay, yeah. Emma, it's fine. You feel the urge to speak, it's fine. Hold your views, and I have about a minute to drop it, and then you can share. But you see, in all that you're doing, Emma, if you had no purpose, if you had no meaning, if your life had no value, apart from survival, even survival alludes to a meaning. That is a purpose. But then even that one, what for? Why survive? Is it in order to survive? so that you can survive? No. I will give a day-to-day example and I'll leave it at that. So for example, there are people who go to work in order to get a salary that will take them back to work next month. While that is their reality, that is not the reason they work. Do you get what I'm saying? So there are people who might be lost in the battle to survive, but that's not the actual thing. That is how we are living. That's how we are practicing our existence. But clearly there is beyond. Why do we treat ourselves when we are in, of course, that treatment is not food. Medicine is not food. Why do we, beyond food, have medication for our diseases when we get diseases? In the story of creation, the Bible says that after creating, God tells humanity that I give you the green leaves, the green plants for what? For medicine, for herbs. Because he knows nature doesn't give us that. Nature is mindless. Nature is purposeless. Nature is not intelligent. Nature is chaotic. In other words, even religion, if we are to attribute our creation and invention of religion as part of our random existence, then we shouldn't even have a problem with it because it's part of our chaotic existence, and whether it serves a purpose or not, actually it ends up serving a purpose in our chaos. But even you realize there's something wrong with religion because it seems to be just giving us a comfort that is not. So then you're saying morally, you're saying there's something wrong with religion. That's why I take you back to those 5 questions of life. Origin. Where do we come from? Meaning and purpose. Why are we here? What are we for? Then morality. Is there anything wrong with anything I do or someone does to me? Mm-hmm. And then when all is done, what happens? Do we just cease to exist? Did the person who wronged me or the person I wronged, am I just going to walk scot-free? At the end of the day, as C.S. Lewis would say, if there is a desire in me, like for living longer, that whenever I'm sick or I'm almost dying, I treat myself so that I can live longer. If there is a desire in me of that nature that cannot be met, as Isaiah said, we keep trying to avoid death, but we die. Is there a place where we can live without dying? Where is the birth? Where is this desire to live longer anchored? In nothingness, in randomness, in uselessness, in purposelessness? If you cannot argue for that when you treat yourself, if you don't care about the value of life, why don't you just die? No, you have value. Anyway,
can I say something? Because
please,
you're given a lot of time, and nobody seems to interrupt you. It's stretching for too long, honestly speaking.
Because you are impatient, you didn't need to interrupt. Sorry.
No, it's fine because I needed to answer some of these things that you're saying. I don't know whether you still have
something. Okay, Emma, respond to Beinefun. Though interrupting, I think, is rude, which is why even me as the moderator, I try to avoid it. I think it's best to follow your line of thought until the end and then allow someone else to respond.
But if you're to allow that, you must give people time. You must say you have this particular time to use so that within that time.
I'm timing.
Now, the issue of saying that why do we treat ourselves when we are sick of what? You see, this, for me, these arguments for me don't hold much ground. Treatment is a way of avoiding pain. Okay? If you have physical pain, it affects your psychological processes of thinking. If someone cut off my hand, I'll have to seek treatment for that. Pain is avoidance of pain because the entire existence of human life, our daily living, centers around pain and pleasure. We avoid pain, running into pleasure, and all sorts of things, blah, blah, blah. We have physical pleasure, we have got psychological pleasure that we seek with life, and so on. The thing is trying to say about consciousness and life, basically, where the life comes from. For me, the issue of language, all these things, consciousness is a singularity. There is no such thing as my consciousness or your consciousness. There is no human being who comes into this world with his own tribe or his own language. No. You come into this world where every tribe that you belong to, there's language, they give you a name, society gives you a name, gives you language, and you experience the thoughts of that society. For example, if I'm raised as an Acholi, I'll speak Acholi. If you're raised as in Muganda, you speak Luganda. But the point I'm trying to put across is that there is no separation in consciousness. There is no difference between the Acholi school of thought and the Buganda school of thought. These are all knowledge which has been passed on from one generation to another. It has been sustained for generation upon generation for purposes of continuity of society. We derive our meaning, now let me just say this, from how our society is structured. That is it. There is no meaning outside the framework of society. If society says stealing is bad, whether I agree with them or not, I must accept it because society is going to send me to prison, to jail. Okay? So I accept that all our meaning and purpose is within the framework of the society that we live in. If you go to Asia,
Thank you,
if
Emma.
you go to other places, their meaning is different. The Aboriginals, they have their own different understanding of meaning and purpose. So all our meaning and purpose is derived from the society from which we belong to and to the things that you've been exposed to. What we read, if you read the Bible, you derive a meaning from the Bible. Doesn't mean it's true, but you derive a meaning from it. If you read maybe some novel,
So
yeah,
So Emma, what you're saying is there's meaning, but meaning is relative. There's no
yes,
absolute
it is.
meaning.
Yes, there's no absolute meaning. Meaning is relative.
Okay.
You can't come and say
Okay.
that what you have defined as meaning, like going to heaven and saying all these things, is basically the absolute. No, the people who have never seen the Bible. My own son has never seen the Bible, even doesn't know what the Bible looks like. He doesn't know whether God exists or Jesus exists. Because the fact of the matter is, like I've always said, the biological comes first, then the psychological comes later. When you are born, is there anyone who has ever experienced their own birth? No, because at the moment of birth, the psychological process hasn't formed yet. You're basically surviving at the biological level. The psychological process begins to form when they give you a name.
Emma,
they give you a name.
Emma, thank you. I
Begin to
think
speak the
you made
language
that
of their
point
culture,
earlier.
and then
You
you
made
go
that
on.
point earlier.
That's the thing I'm trying to say. It's the same thing I keep going back to over and
Yeah,
over
thank you.
again.
Thank you, Emma. Emma, there are some questions in the chat. I want you to first read them, and then I'll give you a chance to in the chat, and then I'll give you a chance to respond. Let me go over to Musazi now, and then I'll go to Peter. Musazi?
Yeah, mine is a simple question. If you are born to live here, and scientists have told us that we who get born have won a lottery because millions of people are never going to live here. So my question is, if you are born to live here, why do you think that there is a bigger purpose after you die? That
Who said we are born to live here again? Musazi? Who said we are born to live here?
No, I'm saying that nature is such that you are born to live here, to start life and live here. When time comes for you to die, you die. And the question I'm asking is, why should there be a bigger purpose that after you die, there's going to be another life? You're going to meet your creator. And that would be perfectly okay, but you are basing on it without a jot of evidence.
Okay, Musazi, thank you for your question. I think it's been received. Now, let me cross over to Peter. Peter, your hand is up. Do you want to first answer Musazi's question?
No. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Ayela, Abbott, Emmanuel, and the rest of the members who have been contributing. Mr. Abbott, Ayela, one of the hearts of the matter in your submission is the bite of the term or the notion know, to know. And your submission has raised questions, a lot of questions about it. And if you don't mind, could you enlighten us? When you know, what are you doing? And how do you know you know? Because in your submission, you seem to insinuate that only that which is knowable is that which is material, to mean that which is only perception, or rather perceptible by the senses. Can't we know anything other than material, or other than that which senses can bring us?
Peter.
Emma, you want to answer that? Then I'll go to Benin.
Peter.
Yes, please.
You have really asked a very, very serious question. You see, what we call knowledge, okay, is basically a system of comparison, okay? Knowledge is basically a method of comparison. Let me just come to that kind of understanding here. You see, you know what is by comparing to what isn't. For example, we know what darkness is because we contrast it with what is light. Okay? We know what life is because there is something called death. So basically, knowing and not knowing are not very far apart, Mr. Peter.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
First, go ahead. You're saying?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yela. When I know, what am I doing, or what is that? When I say I know Emmanuel, what am I doing? Is this no a do? And if it's a do, what am I doing?
Basically, I don't know how I can put this. You're trying to saying that when you say Peter knows something, what are you doing?
Yes, what am I? Yes.
Peter, everything you have known is acquired from society. You're basically repeating.
Okay.
You're repeating yourself.
Now you've only answered where I have got what I know. But my question is, what is to know? Now, your response is giving me what I have known, I have acquired. You have given me the acquisition point. My point is, when you say X knows Y, what is X doing, or what is the state of X?
I don't follow. I don't know. I don't know which other way you can put the question, because I don't want to be misconstrued here.
Okay.
But I'll take you through a very simple Buddhistic kind of philosophy, whereby the perceiver and the perceived are not different, or the knower and the knowing are the same process. Just like you can't separate the belief from the believer. Because you see, the belief is called Christianity. The believer may be called Peter or Emma. You can't separate the two.
Okay.
What we call ourselves is basically a movement of knowledge.
Okay. So where there is knowing, there is knowledge.
Yes.
Okay. Is knowledge only that which senses can bring? And if senses fail, then it is not knowledge.
What do you mean when you say knowledge is what senses can bring?
I mean, because you mentioned of something called perception. And when you talk of perception, in other words, I know because I see, I know because I taste, I know because I touch. Can't I know without that?
There is a psychological element there. Because the brain is an organ. that basically moderates I don't know. We are going to go into something which is going to be
Anyway,
taken
guys,
out of.
Emma, I think that was a yes or no question. But Peter and Emma, I'm going to stop you because you're taking us off.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, we shall have another time to do epistemology. Benepunu, come and answer Musazi's question, and of course make another submission. And then, Emma, there are a series of questions in the chat. I hope you've seen them, and they're ready to answer after Benepunu.
I'm seeing them.
Musazi's
Benepunu,
question
please.
was, Musazi's question, whatever I type, I typed Musazi's question on, wait a minute. What was Musazi's question? Katadewate. Which?
I was asking why there should be any meaning beyond death. Like
exactly.
if we all die, and
okay, so I've got it.
Why should there be?
Yes, if the thing is we are going to die, we know this is our only existence. We are being told we are going to die. Why should we try to construe, try to imagine any meaning beyond and actually talking about somewhere beyond this life? Now, that meaning is not just outside this life. And I think we need to stop beating around the bush. The people who make this assertion are religious people. And I think I'll present what Christians believe, and I'll say why I think, and I'm more convinced towards what Christians believe than any idea of nothingness or other. Why? Because, again, this is not an isolated question. It is a question that is squarely connected to everything else, why we are here. We are not merely a product of biology, as someone will insist, that just because two human beings have sexual organs, they come together, and as though those sexual organs just create human beings. No, there is one of the human beings already is designed, as my brother Emma said. They seem to be designed. There is the other human being is designed to receive an egg and keep it somewhere, and that egg becomes rather a sperm that meets an egg, and the two become an embryo. There is some design. There is a way things are coming together from origin, from the way things start. It's not just a matter of two sexual organs, as he was saying, and we cannot just neglect that reality. There is something beyond what we are living with and wrestling with. While we may be preoccupied with enjoyment and our apparent satisfaction, which is utopian because we never get satisfied, right? And survive, we never really survive. Like Isaiah said, at the end we die. Then we begin to ask ourselves those questions. The good thing, we are not the first ones. And I want to insist that because we are not the first ones to ask these questions, then we cannot pretend that those who wrestled with them earlier did not pass on knowledge to us. They passed on what they wrestled and learned as they wrestled within nature and beyond nature, all right? And so the metaphysical reality that we may pretend doesn't exist does exist. In other words, let me go to the Christian worldview, for example. People lived and they were dying. People lived and they were dying. The New Testament writers tell us that there was a guy who came, lived with people, walked with people, performed miracles, was crucified, he died, and what was disturbing for them is that he rose. And this, if it was not so, they would never have bothered or wrestled with it. They wrestled with it themselves. Equally, in the biblical story, we are told of a virgin birth. You're talking biology. You're talking about sexual organs. A virgin birth is something that beats your biology. It suggests that there was no two sexual organs coming together. Now, it could be to you a story that people come up with, but no, wait a minute. If all nature can do is provide for two sexual organs to come together and give us life, those that wrestled, hear Mary's question when the angel tells her, you will have a baby. She's like, how is this so? The only way I can have a baby is if I have laid with a man. I have not laid with a man, meaning that even Mary back in the day knew basic biology. But because something that is outside basic biology would happen to her, then it means it brings in something else. You heard me when I quoted John Lewontin. that the avoidance of the divine foot in the door, I think that's what we are wrestling with. Because the moment you allow that, you may appeal to psychology. Psychology is not the whole explanation of life. You may appeal to biology. It is not. It's just one finger of reality. The hand has 5 fingers. So you're talking about grabbing one finger and saying psychology, psychology. No, there is philosophy, there is history, there is the spiritual, there is biology, as you say, there's the physical and there's the non-physical. And we cannot pretend that these are not real, because just because we may not be able to interact with them immediately in the physical, just because we can't explain our mind physically, doesn't mean our mind doesn't exist. It does exist. Okay, so friends, let's accept, yes, there is life here today, but our continued, we could, and I may not give you the satisfactory answer you desire, but the Christians that lived and saw Jesus resurrect began to wrestle with, what does this mean? Oh, wait a minute. We thought that those who die and do not return. But wait a minute, one has died and has come back to us, and we have seen him. What does this mean? They said, hey, wait, he talked about this before. What did he mean when he said? Then they began to study back and forth, back and forth. And for me, you may call it biased view. What I would invite you is to provide a view that has a thread from origin to end, rather than just isolation of one side of things. Because from beginning to end, if you begin from nothingness, obviously you are not going to end anywhere apart from nothingness. But the problem is that you've not lived nothingness. You've lived somethingness. And because you've lived somethingness, you cannot explain that somethingness with nothingness from the beginning to the end. We have to explain the something, the is. There is, we are. What we are has to be explained outside of nothing. And it is a shame that we would even appeal to nothingness, because even what we are talking now is meaningless.
Yeah, it is.
And that would, yeah, but Emma, that is an insult to me. To me,
Yeah,
I want to be on it. But you see, what I'm trying to say, while it's okay for you to say it is, but even what you're saying has no meaning.
Yes.
But Emma, please. Okay, maybe it's fun for you, you enjoy it. What I'm trying to say intellectually, let's not insult our intellect. Let's examine. I'm not saying you need to believe me. What I'm saying is that might be exciting for you to believe nothing, to think you're nothing, to think what you're saying and reasoning is nothing.
Actually, it's terrifying.
It is what?
Terrifying. It's not exciting.
Good. Exactly. It terrified many, because people thought we die and nothing happens. But then seeing a resurrection changes everything. And that's why the New Testament writers keep saying, wait, our belief is not based even in the opening of eyes. No. Our belief is not even based in the lame walking. No. Our belief is in seeing a man who was crucified, dead, put in a tomb, closed off, seeing him again resurrected. That says there is life beyond this death. We live, we die. Where does our mind, where does our soul, where do we go? And then it points back. For example, the Bible story, the very first verse in the Bible says, in the beginning, God. Now, it might be the human being saying, in the beginning, God, if you wish. But if you say, in the beginning, nothing existed, then after nothing had existed, then nature existed. Matter, space, time, and energy existed. And after 3 seconds, boom, then primordial soup existed. And then finally, these minds that we're using to reason and speak words that we expect to be intelligible and understood on the other end, then finally existed. Then we need to rethink. And that's what I'm saying. From one side, at one point, you don't know.
As you
That's
finish.
okay. Thank you very much. At one point, you can say you don't know. But I would love to hear your investigation beyond your I don't know. You cannot say I don't want to know. Then what do you mean? If you don't know and you don't want to know, What are you meaning? Because if you don't know today, fine. It's okay, you don't know. Then investigate. And then I want to hear, where have you investigated? What have you investigated? What counter opinion have you met? And what have they meant to you? What have you arrived at? If you arrive back to, I don't know, it could be a point of, oh my goodness, this is alarming and terrifying. That is true. And that's why the gospel stories tell you, do not be terrified. No, 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 no. The God or your creator has not created you to be terrified, has created you to relate with him peacefully, to relate with that being that has the consciousness, intellect, moral awareness as you, but higher than you. All right. And that is the purpose. Anyway, I could go on, and you could say that I'm speaking from a biased point of view, but I would like to dare you to present, apart from allegations and assertions from psychology, because psychology is not enough.
No, Emma, wait.
Psychology is not enough.
History. Just conclude, please.
There's a history to belief in God. Yes, there's a history to belief in the supernatural, whether in whatever savage culture you might go to, there is a history to belief in God and non-belief in God. All right. And you are saying, I would like to hear from you that what happens when we put away belief in God? What happens? What answers do we get?
Thank you, Nempun.
Life. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you've asked a series of questions, but I want to first take you, Emma, open your chat, please. There are some 2 or 3 questions from Prista there. I want you to first attempt them. And then I see 2 hands up from Petson and Musazi, but yeah, if time allows. Do you see those questions?
No, the questions here, if someone is asking,
now that Emma has established, yes,
that we are equal to animals, do we share a biological language with animals? You see, this is another thing people don't seem to understand.
First read the question, Emma. First read the whole question.
Okay. It says, now that Emma has established that we are equal to animals, do we share a biological language with animals? Anthropologically, I don't know. Animals have
anthropologically.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't mention the other. What is known as the call system for language is the equivalent to human phenomenon of language. You see, we came up with language basically to communicate. If language means anything, it's basically a tool for communication. And other animals also
I will disagree with you, but I guess that's a subject for another day.
Which is okay. Which is okay. Other animals also communicate. Dogs bark. Their barking could be a form of communication. When dogs bark in a neighborhood, other dogs begin to bark as well. They could be communicating. What they're communicating, I may not know what they're communicating. Have you ever tried listening to a language you don't understand? It comes out as noise, complete noise. That's why language is learned. Children don't come into the world when they know any particular language. Language is learned. Language has been refined by society for generation and generation, and over time it has been passed on. So I don't understand what it means by a call system for language that is equivalent to human phenomenon of language. What I do know is that
is barking the same as the human language? I think that's the question.
Barking could be to dogs what language is to us human beings. That is the best way I can put it.
Moderator, can I come in there?
Okay, Isaiah, please come in. Maybe clarify your question.
Yeah, I have not known Emma to be so lazy with issues like he has been today, and I guess the problem is that he has hold his guns to the defensive, which is very unfortunate. Number one. Number two, the call system of the animal world, which serves as their language, is not the same language system of human beings. Well, you can subject that to the idea of communication, but here is the thing, Emma. Human beings do not only use language for communication, they use it for meaning. That is why, against that first question, I also said that on the issue of language, are animals concerned with abstracts? Or is this even part of the call system? As a subset of... Hold on, Emma. has a subset of meaning as human beings. When a dog barks, does it bark in an abstract form? Because human beings can speak in abstracts. And what we are doing there, we are not only communicating the transferring of audio and visuals, etc. That's not what we are doing. We are now establishing meaning. Now, you cannot say that language is a biological commonality between human beings and animals. Now that language is special to human beings in that aspect, then that disqualifies what we've been discussing earlier on, that human beings are equal to animals biologically. I mean, this is being lazy. We know scientifically that there are biological differences between Homo sapiens and the other world of animals. This is basic science, Emma. Why are you being lazy today?
No, first listen, Isaiah. You see, this is why I usually reach a point whereby I can't usually say much. You see, we are going to keep going back and forth forever. I have said language is for communication, mostly, from my point of view. Although
your point of view does not interpret the discipline. We have
what do you mean?
The discipline of language. It is an entire discipline. So you cannot subject language to only communication. We all know that is not what language is all for. Number one, when you say communication in language, what do you even mean?
You see, words, we use words to explain other words. The meaning of language is found within language. We use words. That's why when you define one word, you use other words to define the same word.
Does the barking of a dog explain another kind of barking?
Now, for me, I was using that as an example. I can't speak for animals from a very objective point of view.
That is what you already spoke for them when you equalized them with us.
No, you see, because you're mistaking me.
No, the phenomenon of language.
You see, you're mistaking what I'm trying to say. When I say we are not different from other animals and other organisms in nature, I am simply saying that the order of life applies to all of us the same way.
We have picked now an aspect of life, aka language. Confirm to us that we are equal to animals as far as language is concerned, because this is where we're going to get the meaning and then have distinctions, or actually fail to get distinctions between human beings and animals. We have now picked an aspect of life, biology. But you say that language is biological.
Isaiah.
Okay, yes, okay, Isaiah. Isaiah, if I may ask you first listen, person. You see, the problem is this, is that when you look at human life, we start as a sperm cell. Does a sperm cell talk?
You are digressing. Let's focus on the aspect.
No. You see, no.
We are focusing on the aspect of life, language.
No. Life. When you look at life, life is organic in nature. It's cellular life.
We share the same language with animals so that we are equal biologically, even in that aspect. Or there is a difference, yes or no?
What I do know is that all animals communicate. That is all.
Aha, good. And they use language, which is called the call system.
I didn't say language.
Oh, they communicate.
I say animals communicate. You see, you're mistaking me.
Fine, let's take yours now. I only have 1 minute, moderator, please. Now, let me just use your term. They communicate. Are we together? Do animals communicate in abstracts? Yes or no?
I don't know that.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you, moderator. I rest my case.
I don't know.
Well, I know they don't. There's nothing like barking in abstract or a cow mowing in abstract. There's nothing like that.
Okay, what do you mean in abstract?
When a dog barks, barking means barking. For instance, there are reasons as to why dogs bark, and those reasons are limited. Now, human beings can communicate by not even uttering any audible thing, and that is still language, and that is still communication. Abstract form.
But animals also do that.
Uh-huh.
Yes, animals communicate. Animals can communicate without their normal sounds they make. Hey.
Demonstrate.
For example, if these they are called the predators. In case it is supposed to attack prey.
Like which predator? Like which predator?
A snake. I would say like a snake. Now, a snake can okay, no, let me not even just use predators. When animals are when they want to mate, there's a certain language, there's a certain communication, there's a certain signal they can send.
Person. Use a specific animal.
When they're going to mate.
Mating.
Okay, like let's say like even these domestic animals that we have.
Like
in case one? It is a cow.
Like a cow.
A cow, yes. When a cow is on heat, it may not more, but it will communicate to the bull that it is ready for mating.
Now,
yes.
Is it the animal that communicates or its body? Because human beings also have that.
But you said that dogs only bark.
In the cow world, it is the bull that tests by smell the genital of the female. Number one. Number two, the cow that is on heat is always climbing each other. That is not abstract. That's not abstractual communication, Peterson. That is practical and physical. It is physiology.
But anyway, I think that what Emma was trying to communicate, because if you bring it to the angle of only communication, I think for him he said that because we're all here for survival, there is no difference between us and the other animals. Now, when you bring
and because he established that we are equally the same as far as survival is concerned, we are using one aspect of life, which is language. Animals have language, human beings have a language. We have established, I have established, that there is a difference in that language. If there is a difference, therefore, in that language, therefore, there could be a different understanding of what meaning is in the animal world and in the human world. If there is that difference in meaning, therefore, human beings are not equal to animals, at least in that aspect, and we could go on and on. Moderator, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have hands up from. Okay, let me go to Pedson, Musazi, Peter, and then Isaac Mkwana.
My question, it may not be answered today, but you see the debate that we're having now is probably a debate that has been on. It has been in existence because human beings have been asking these questions and we're trying to find answers. My question is, if this is a serious issue for human being, even determining our destination, why is it that God has never come clear and he pronounces himself? Because Emma says, I don't know. Now, us who claim that we know, we also don't know. Because from what we're discussing from a point that we don't know. Why is it
Peterson, how clear do you want that communication from God? How would it be clear? Just demonstrate to us.
Because
how God would make himself clear.
Here is the thing. When we're all discussing the things that we touch with our hands, the things that we understand here practically, and we know that this is this and this is this. If our destination after death is supposed to take this route, let him communicate to us and we understand, because we are discussing
communicate like how, Peter? Peterson, communicate how?
Like how we understand the knowledge that we acquire. All knowledge that we acquire it.
Christians will tell you he has communicated in the Bible. It's written there. So how do you want him to communicate?
Then
so if I was born a Chinese, because you see we're discussing this because we're privileged that we have a Christian background. Now, if I was born in China,
there's no gospel in China, Peterson. There's no gospel in China.
Just imagine you have a Chinese
in China. answer the question, Peterson. Isn't are there Christians in China?
People who are from a Muslim background, because you see, Jet, the things that we are discussing of Christianity and the Bible is because of our background. Just imagine your background is different. Would you be thinking like how you're thinking?
Peterson.
Okay, Peterson, thank you. Thank you for your question. I'm sure somebody is going to Sam, you're asking about different things. Okay, Musazi, then Peter. And then I'll go to Dr. Mukwana.
Thank you very much. Edison has a great point. I am surprised that you tried to ignore what he's saying. But my question is, if you...
No, I didn't ignore.
No, okay. Let
Just
me
him
ask
to be clear about what he was asking.
Okay. Let me ask you the question I wanted to ask you. If there is no life after death, how are you going to know? Because what we are seeing is the very thing that you would see if there was no life after death.
What are we saying, Musazi? Just clarify that for me.
Let me repeat. If there is no life after death, what kind of evidence would you want to conclude the death? Because what we are witnessing, what we've seen over the years, maybe I should say over the centuries, is that there is really nothing that suggests there is no life after death.
Okay. So if there was no life after death, what would suggest?
Yeah, how would you
Peter,
know?
then
how would
you
this
know?
look different from what we have? Because
okay,
what we have is
I get
that
your question.
dying. Nobody has ever come back to tell us there is life somehow. Religious people such as you and many others, millions in fact, still believe there is life after death.
Okay, thank you, Musazi. Musazi's question, I hope you guys have got it. If it wasn't there, how different would this life be? People would still die, you know. People who die would never come back, and so on and so forth. That's Musazi's question. Peter?
Thank you very much. Two things. Number one, when we say life after death, what do we mean? Do we mean continuation of life of one who has died, or after one who has died and dies, meaning returns? That is one. Question two, as far as language and communication is concerned, it is a lapse in good judgment to think that whatever communicates has language, so that every time you see communication, you have seen language. I submit.
And Peter is the professor of languages. That's why I told you, Emma, you're in trouble when you go into the language business. Dr. Mukwana?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Matthew chapter 11, verse 25. At that time, Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this is what you are pleased to do. I want to thank God that he revealed these things to me. And for a long time, Priest Isaiah will tell you that in theology, there is that school of thought that believes that there are some people who are chosen to know God and some people who are destined to destruction. And that school of thought, Priest Isaiah and I have been against, and I know Isaiah is still against it, but now today, I have come to discover that it is true. Because if a person of Ayela's age and education at this time, he still believes he's like a fish, like a dog. Oh my God. And Asimwe, you have disappointed me for all the time we've been here. The kind of argument you've made, I am now beginning to think that surely some people are destined for destruction.
Let's
I
not
submit.
attack people's persona.
Hey.
Let's stick on the argument. You don't
Okay.
say there's no point of mentioning somebody's age and education. It's not necessary. We can just stick to the argument, and we stick around. Let's just stay on argument. It's okay to hold that strong belief of yours, but it's also not okay to assume that those who disagree with you are wrong and you're the only right person. It's fair enough. You'll go to heaven. It's okay. Let's just stick to the argument.
Okay, thank you. Guys, I'm only asking for 6 more minutes. That's because we started 10 minutes late, so I'm just reclaiming back my time. Okay. Beine Punu, there were some series of questions from Petson and from Musazi. You want to go for it?
Thank you very much. I was typing a response, but when you said there is time, I thought I would respond. So first, remind me of Musazi's question, the one of Edson I captured. Remind me of Musazi's question.
was wondering what if there was no life after death, how would life be different anyway? Because we still die.
I asked that question. I asked the similar question earlier, saying, "Give me the alternative. Tell me the alternative. Tell me the other view, because you may say we are using this as a psychological crutch to comfort us when death comes. That's okay. But then tell me the other side. Well, this is the version. Well, you know what? When you die, and again, it can sound like a psychological crutch. When you die, yeah, you cease to exist. You see, guys, you forget that the love comes into the picture. Love, because you and your loved ones don't die at the same time. Your loved ones die before you, or you die before your loved ones. And the encouragement, which you find as a psychological crutch, is that, as I think it's Serovi, they asked, or again, Musazi, that when does this life eternal begin? Or that life after death, when does it begin? You see, the Christian teaching, and I'll represent that which I know, is that life doesn't even begin after you die. You begin to experience it now. You realize that this is not all we live for. The pursuit of material and elusive satisfaction is not all that there is. Why? Because every time you get to a different level, you want to go to another level. Every time you eat this, you want to eat it more. Every time you pursue this, you want to pursue more. You realize, there is more satisfaction beyond this, because I don't seem to be satisfied with what I get here. And at the end of the day, when we die, and I would want to say this as though I have been there, but I'm not saying that I've been there. We all accept that these bodies that we have today are not the ones that we carry on when we die, because we bury those and they decay. We put them in the grave. They are dead. The physical material bodies go back. And that's a biblical thing that we are told. From earth, we go back to earth. But knowing that as human beings, we cannot explain away a human being entirely on the physical, on the body. That's why when you talk about embryos and you're saying you know nothing, the embryo knows nothing, it is true according to what you think you know, but embryos form from the moment the DNA, that's why the DNA is the longest word. Within the embryo, there is language. There is language that begins right from the start, from the formation of life, all right? So when we die, the body dies, which is supposed to die, even if you live 120 years, life continues. We are on one side of eternity. And this is not mere reincarnation as from other worldviews would say, but life as God has intended it. That's why justice, mercy, forgiveness, love, those things that are utopian, those things that we desire to see that we can't access today, there has to be, I'm asserting, you allow me to do that. There has to be somewhere we get that desire. We wish to see it, but it doesn't. Our world is explained to be fallen by the Bible. It's not merely chaotic, but fallen. It is the kind of life you would expect to have in a world where human beings are fallen and as if living for survival. But in the non-fallen world, or that which we call life beyond here, we don't live for survival. It is no longer survival. It is not survival because you are living. It is living. So you must understand life is not about survival. It's about living. That's why the language of life after death is living, not surviving. Okay, so survival is language that is being used to make it look like that's all that there is. No, we are surviving in order to live. Then what is living? Because when we die, we are living here.
Our time is almost up.
I'm sorry, one night. I couldn't debate dimensions of
There have been so many other dimensions.
Yes. But that's what I would say. When you talk living and surviving, those are two different things. The only reason you're surviving is because you're living. Hence, you need to explain life as you're trying to survive it. So when you're talking about eternal life or living beyond death, it's because your life is continuing beyond death. Death is a mere interruption because there's a physical part of you that doesn't have to continue by nature. Anyway, let me stop there because there's too many things I would have to say.
Yeah. Nancha, let me give you 1 minute.
Yes, Papa, thank you so much.
You're the last lady standing. In 1 minute, please summarize what you're saying.
Yeah, I wanted to say two things, but I've forgotten the second. Now let me say the one thing I remember. I think there is a certain arrogance about us that makes us think that that we want people to, we want people to know God more than God wants it for himself. So those people that keep asking the question that I've seen recurrently happening, that what are
Your network.
People who in God or in a background where there is
terrible.
no.
The network is terrible. Okay, continue.
Let me just type it.
Can hear now.
What question? Okay. What question?
Okay. Yeah, so the question that people always say that, so those people who are living in a place where there is no God, where God is not known, where there is no Christianity, leave that thing to God. God is responsible for ensuring that people get to know him. After all, he is a righteous judge. So God is responsible for spreading the gospel about himself. So that is his business. Let us quit thinking that we like God's business more than God likes his business. So I think we need to trust God. Yes.
Thank you, Nancha. I think that's in response to Pedson, who said if you're born in China or the Amazon forest and you've never heard of the gospel and so on and so forth. Thank you, Nancha. Guys, that's all we had time for. As you can see, it's still hot. We can always come back here on another Monday and continue this debate. It seems to me that the issue of meaning is one of those that are sticking out. So I'll probably organize another Q&A session and we just talk about the meaning of life generally. Emma, I hope you'll be able to come back for that one. But I want to thank you for joining. Thank you very much. This recording is going to be uploaded to YouTube. You can find it there and share with others. Otherwise, we're always here on Monday. The Zoom link is the same. The passcode is the same. Please feel free to come back and we have a conversation about these matters. Yeah. Our time is up. We can't continue beyond this. Have a good one.
No,
see you next Monday. God bless.
Yeah. Moderator. All right.